Okay, this is pizza dough making. It is like 7:30 in the morning because this is a process that takes time. I have my ingredients lined up. I use actually just bread machine yeast. This is another one I've used, Fleischmann's Active Dry. I suppose you could use live yeast, fresh yeast in the cake. Salt, I use kosher salt, my favorite brand of kosher salt, Diamond, but whatever. And flour, I'm using Antimo Caputo Tipo 00. Okay, I've already weighed out in a bowl. We're going to do this by hand, by the way. I often will do it by electric mixer, but we're going to do this one by hand for demonstration. There is the yeast, 7 grams, okay, weighed out. And I've already weighed out the flour, 142 grams. That comes out because it's 5 ounces based on the ratios that somebody gave me in American volumes. And the salt I put into the flour, that's 9 grams, okay? And of course, then there's the water. The water has been heated to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, again, American units. I know how long to heat it in my microwave based on experimentation. So I have 105 degree Fahrenheit water. I pour it into my 7 grams of yeast. I'm going to whip that by hand. And you know, we'll whip it 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so I really only whipped the yeast in the warm water for like a minute. That's just to dissolve the yeast so it looks like this milky colored thing. Then I'm going to put in my flour mixture with the salt, right? That's 100. By the way, maybe I didn't mention that the water volume was 250 ml, otherwise known as 1 cup. And that's done by weight because everybody knows that 1 ml of water is 1 gram, is 1 cc. So, salt, flour, yeast, warm water. Now we're going to whip that for another 3 minutes or so. Okay, so now I've been whipping this for, 3 minutes. We'll just give it, the last bit. It should look, the texture of this should be creamy. Sort of like thicker than half and half. Sort of like a thin pancake batter. Thin milkshake, drips off like that. Got some bubbles in there because I've been kind of, whisking it, okay? So I won't need the whisk anymore because now I have measured out 255 grams of Caputo Tipo 00 flour, and I'm going to add it to the warm sponge, they call it, the warm mixture here. And 255 grams ends up being about 9 ounces, okay? And then pretty much I'm going to stick my hand in there and start mixing this around because you'll take that sponge mixture and it will start to turn into a dough, okay? And it's a mess and it's gooey. And this is going to be, as it comes together, I'm going to watch the time now because I'm going to need it about 12 minutes. And you can tell by looking at the texture whether it seems right to you, okay? And that's by experience in a lot of ways. So all the crumb will start to come together. And so when you start to knead it, you got to kind of get into it. And I put a pastry board down because sometimes I don't like to knead it in the bowl. I'm going to want to put it on the board to kind of get into it, okay? Okay, so now I've gotten all the flour pieces out of the bowl. I'm going to put it on my board here because, like I said, I want to get into it. And this is what it looks kind of crumbly. I'm going to try to roll this sucker out so that it becomes more consistent texture like this, okay? And I've only been into it for like 3 minutes. Like I said, we're going to go 12, so working it like this. I'm gonna get the stuff off my fingers, make sure all that gets into the mixture there. You want it to start off warm, and this always cools it off a bit. And this is why I like to use a mixer, because the mixer kind of, you know, does the labor for me. All right, I'm in like the last minute of this process, and this is what the dough looks like. It's like Play-Doh, good Play-Doh, like the one you open out of the can when it's new. Sticky though, right? But not so sticky that it sticks to the board, right? But this is its relative elasticity there, right? This is my, keep folding it over on itself, make sure I've got that. And then, how much do you need it? How much is too much to make it tough, and how much is not enough? I don't exactly know, except by feel and by time. And the reason I go about this long is somebody taught me that, and it works. This ball will make 3 balls, smaller balls later for the pizza itself. And that will yield 215 to 220 gram balls, a little less than 220 grams for each of them, which gives you about a 9 or 10 inch pie. Okay, so that ball is done, goes in here, and it's going to rise for the next 2 hours. So what I'm going to do, keep it moist, I'm going to put it in a warm, relatively warm place, but not hot, and keep it covered. The dough has been rising for that 4 hours. This is the hand-mixed or hand-kneaded bunch. This is what it looks like. Super big. Got a bunch of bubbles in it. On the other hand, this is the one I did in the mixer. Similar, right? Super big. What we're going to do is we're going to punch that down like this. And then I have the special scraper tool buy in the store. Like a giant flexible piece of plastic. I'm going to scrape this out onto the board. This is where you can feel the relative texture of your dough. It's kind of gooey. But it shouldn't be wet, it should be moist. Alright, so that's what it looks like. So then, I know this is going to make 3 balls, so I turn on my scale so I can weigh out the balls. Dust my hands with a flour so it doesn't stick too much. Okay. This is how we're going to manipulate it. First, I don't want to knead it at all. I don't want to work the dough too much. I'm just going to cut it into thirds. I'm going to get an idea. That's 209 grams, so I'm going to add just a little bit more because I'm going to want it around 215. Okay. This one I'm going to divide in half. Okay, that's 225, a little bit big. I mean, I know that one's too small. Okay. I just cut off that piece, and that brings this one down to about 209, so I'm a little short on that. Give me back some of that. So this one, that was 208. I had too much for this. It's 218. Look at this one. All right, 215. So, you know, you got one that's a little lighter than the others, whatever. So this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to dust my hands a little bit. I don't want to work them too much because it feels pretty silky. You see how it kind of sticks to the board, has a little elasticity there. So, what I'm going to do is stretch it just a hint, fold it on itself. All right, you need to learn to do this quickly so it doesn't get too gooey. Like that, so it starts to look like a ball, right? You don't want to work it too much. And I'm going to do this, a little more flour in my hands. Okay, so now I have this kind of, you know, small, palm-sized, delicate ball. Okay, got a few air bubbles in there. You can squeeze those out because they're going to come back anyway in the second rise. Okay. Now I have a big pan. And I kind of oil it a little bit, but it doesn't, lightly with olive oil. That way it won't stick too badly to the pan. And it's big enough to keep them, when they expand about this size, to keep them from sticking to each other. Gonna put that one in there. Let that be. Do the next ball, same thing. Yeah, I do that. Fold on itself, but I don't. I pinch it right there. Fold and pinch at the top. Okay, so now it looks like a ball. I'm gonna squeeze it out a little bit. What I do is I take the part where I was pinching it, just kind of roll it. I get the little folds out of it mostly. There's no point. You kind of roll it down like that. You can work a little more than that if you want. Yeah, you don't want to make it too tough though. Okay. Again, another delicate ball there. Put it in my pan. So they're separated like that. I don't know, sorry, maybe it's too far away. Like that. That way, again, they're going to expand. I'm going to put it somewhere cool to expand. So again, kind of doesn't stretch back on itself, right? There you go, folding it out. It gets, as I'm doing this, it gets a little rubberier. See that? Now it doesn't stretch as much because I've worked it. That's why you don't want to work it too much. Okay, so I'm going to take these 3 balls now. I'm going to let them sit there. Take a washcloth. I'm going to rinse in cold water, wring it out. And I'm going to cover those balls. You could probably wring out just a hint more. I'm going to cover the balls with a damp cloth. Now, alternatively, you can use saran wrap. I don't like to use too much plastic because then what do you do with the plastic? You throw it away, right? A lot of plastic you throw away every time you make this. This is going to go down in the basement. My basement sits around 60 degrees, sometimes less, sometimes a little more. Has a humidity somewhere around, I don't know, somewhere between 95 and 85%. And it's going to sit there until dinner time. It's noontime now. Remember, you've been sitting, the balls have already been, or the dough had been sitting already for 4 hours. It's going to sit until dinner time, which typically for us is 7:30. It's going to sit for essentially another, almost 8 hours.